Hello and welcome to Ishi's Great Big Alien Show. I am your host, Ishi, and for the next hour or so, the human suit comes off. No more of this pretending that I'm a skeptic. No more of this, oh, well, I find it culturally fascinating what grays signify in our collective unconscious. None of that. No, I'm cutting the bullshit. It's all real. It's all real. I don't have to fake it. And so, yes, for an hour, you get at least the true uncut gray.
You get the full reticulin.
Yes, you get the full reticulin.
And I'm your co-host, the night editor, Kat Rocha.
And we will be answering any of your questions about UFOs, aliens, and any such stuff. Just, again, keep in mind, I will not be pretending to be a skeptic tonight. I will not give the intellectual and well-educated viewpoint of what I think this means from a psychological standpoint. Nope, it's all real.
We need a theremin in here.
Yes, we do need a theremin.
We can't, this show really needs a theremin.
So, what we're going to be covering today, I'm quite pleased to cover this one, by the way.
You're pleased to cover Tom King.
Yes, I am, because it's going to get you mad.
And what, are you sure it's not going to get you mad? I mean, he is, defaming your people.
Yes, he is. And you know what? Outrage on this show means ratings.
Yes.
And I need ratings right now because you guys need to go buy my book, Scars. Currently available on Amazon.com. If you're an Amazon Unlimited subscriber, you get to read it for free. But if you're not, it's still only 99 cents. And, you like The Expanse, you like space travel, you like Rats of Nim, this book's for you. It really is. Seriously. I mean, it is the most unlikely buddy film story you've ever read, if that makes any sense.
Yes, they're going to be singing the theme from Bosom Buddies in this book.
But and the link is in the description. So please do me a favor, go down there, check it out, consider buying the book. It helps us immensely. And if you've already gotten the book, please post a review. Please post a review. That's even more important than the purchase, seriously. Okay, so
what is this atrocity that you have uncovered involving Tom King and gray aliens?
UFOs, the most compelling evidence for the existence of UFOs by Tom King. Yes, that Tom King.
I love how redundant his title is. He couldn't say the most compelling evidence of the existence of aliens or visitors or, no, UFOs, the evidence of UFOs. It's like, what the fuck?
From the back of the book, unidentified flying objects, like religion, have found a way to divide humanity. You know what? I don't think there's ever been jihads or holy wars or executions or crusades or inquisitions for UFOs. Just saying.
No, I mean, you've gotten people having heat stroke going out to the Nevada desert, but that's about it.
So already we've got the pretension factor dialed up to 11 here. So, like religion, have found a way to divide humanity. One third into believers, one other into, God, this is horribly written. One other into skeptics.
Well, it is Tom King. I mean, are we shocked that it's horribly written? By the way, dear listeners, this is a prose book. This isn't comics. Yes, Tom King has actually not only ventured into prose, but dare I say it, nonfiction.
And the third, not really knowing where they live.
What?
Try reading that.
Diagram that sentence. Okay. Unidentified flying objects, like religion, have found a way to divide humanity. 1/3 into believers, one other into skeptics, and the third not really knowing where they live.
That's a terrible sentence.
That got past I don't think he had an editor for this.
I don't think he did either.
I
The search for answers, like religion. Wow, he's stuck on that. The search for answers, like religion, has also been constant dead ends.
no, that's the antithesis. Religion very much, well, unless you're counting the dead end being the fact that you're in the fucking ground, but no, religion very much so does not have a dead end. That's the whole point.
Now, I'm just going to lay something out here. He's talking about my people and the vehicles we drive. And I find this deeply insulting to claim that looking for the thing I drive to work in is a dead end. That it's somehow comparable to religion, that you have to have faith to believe that the vehicle I drive around in.
Well, if you drove a space Pinto, yeah, I would think that was a dead end.
You know, what the fuck do you call the Phoenix Lights, Tom?
Yeah, you know, that's not a dead end. That very much so left things wide open.
We cannot deny the fact that once in a while strange things happen in our skies. However, people seem to make assumptions that unidentified flying objects directly correlate to alien life. Fact? No. A UFO simply refers to anything that flies that cannot be identified by conventional reasoning.
Well, then why should I buy your book? You just gave away your whole stance, like within 3 really bad sentences.
This being said, period. That's this being said,
period.
That a 3-word sentence.
That's not a sentence.
You're the editor.
That's not a sentence. That is the beginning of a sentence. That's the subject of a sentence.
This being said, however, it would not be irrational to relate the two, but the initial is always the result of the former. God, this is badly written.
What? But okay, wait. This being said, period. However, comma, it would not be irrational to relate the two. Which two? Who's the ball? Is he talking about, relating unidentified objects to actual aliens?
Yeah.
It's not irrational. Well, no shit, it's not irrational. I mean, you just
Okay, read this one.
It is worth noting. By the way, Ishi actually skipped a paragraph here.
We got to get through this.
It is worth noting also that God, this is bad.
DC pays this fucker.
No. Yeah, this is just proving that shit that we read before, it was him edited.
Yeah, that's with an editor.
I didn't think he was edited. I had thought they had just let him like shit on a page and then gave it to the poor artist to draw. This proves that was edited.
This is what happens when a spoiled rich kid whose parents have a very large stake in Miramax is allowed to use his money and connections to be published and to work for DC. This is what you get.
It is worth noting also that one can really not pinpoint the first ever UFO sighting. Human beings have had a knack for being curious for quite a while now.
That's not really... That's 2 different ideas.
Yeah. From as far back as before Christ, people reported to see strange objects in the sky. However, life back then was much more simple, and people always assumed that all of these strange objects was as a result of religious interventions. No, they didn't. The Greeks were very aware of what comets were.
Do we need to read this last paragraph?
Do you want to read that? That's really the real question. Do you want to read the next
paragraph? Let's just read the very last few sentences here.
However, this is not to say that every account in here is true. Most UFO sightings are married with inconsistent takes and we have tried to sum up through research what we believe were the actual events. Who is this we shit? I believe he just cut and pasted from Wikipedia.
Yeah, we is Wikipedia.
Yeah. Also, we hope that you would be able to distinguish between the writer's opinions and fact. No, Tom, no. I cannot distinguish any of you in this book other than the fact that you slapped your name on
And
it.
by the way, that description is then restated in the first chapter of the book.
Oh, they just cut and pasted the first chapter as the blurb on Kindle?
Or the introduction, yes.
Oh, Christ.
And you notice there is no editor listed here. Just Tommy Boy is we, apparently. He speaks in the royal we.
Why did he put on his copyright from heroes to zeros? I'm confused.
Okay, so let's go through some of these questions before we dive back into this shit show. Okay, let's see.
This makes me wish I could drink. And I'm not joking about that. I think I would be having much more fun with some whiskey in me. Owen, I'm having flashbacks to to doing Adventures in Awful. Owen, will this be about how Tom King got probed by a female reptoid with a giant drill, and that's why he has mommy issues?
You know, that would be a better book, and it probably would be more honest.
I would read that. In fact, I'd want an animated GIF that I could watch over and over and over again.
You know, I actually have a suspicion Tom might be a reptoid.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What are your suspicions? I mean, what are the indicators?
Rich Hollywood money.
Mm-hmm.
Seemingly getting jobs he has no business getting into. Weird connections. Bizarre sex fetishes. His eyes seem to do weird things whenever people look at him.
The fact that
he has trouble acting like a human being.
The fact that he doesn't seem to have a past, it keeps changing.
Yeah, his past keeps changing. Details of his life keep changing. But most importantly, whenever he's in front of a camera, you notice how difficult a time he has acting like a human.
Yeah, he does. He really does.
He's stiff. He's robotic. He has wild mood swings. His reactions are either understated or overplayed.
Depending on if he's in front of the camera by himself or with a human.
But, you know, the cap on all this is, of course, rich Hollywood money. Of course, he's a Satan-worshipping alien lizard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anime acid trip. I am the mad magician, the black-clad wizard of light and fire. I am the wielder of the best waifu of the school idol group Muse. I am anime acid trip. Well met, travelers. Is that who you have?
I love that. That's great. He is the mad magician, the anime acid trip.
Yes.
Collecting figurines and waifus.
Yes.
He has a harem of them, apparently, of waifus.
Everyone should have a harem. I endorse this. LK, I think this is just more disinformation. Remember, he alleges he worked for the CIA.
Yeah, and I looked into that, and he really seems to be playing up what his job was. I looked at his job description, and then I did some research into what that job entails. And literally, his job was going to essentially European countries and going to parties full of rich people and important people and listening to conversations.
So
that's
he was a
it.
Social butterfly.
And then reporting back any tidbits of information he thought was interesting. This was his dangerous life, apparently.
Not quite the life of Archer, was it?
No.
And Anime Acid Trip, and I am the keeper of the great, the powerful, the almighty Guyver. I too am also a Guyver, and on a quest to fight reptoid communist terrorists, aka Kronos.
That sounds good to me.
Okay. From the chat last night, I've come up with the blurb so far for The Hidden Secret. From the second Kyle was born, she had his secret. As she has matured, that secret has only grown.
I love it.
Wow. Cooper Clark. What if human beings became so evolved in the future that they couldn't breed with us? Would that technically make them a new species?
Yes. And that's kind of how evolution works over time. So we start, after a certain point, the genetic lineage becomes so separate that first you get the stage in which the crossbreeding only will produce a mule and then produce nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Although I do find it funny that there was all that talk about the Russians trying to breed with gorillas to create super soldiers. They were convinced that if they could just get one egg to fertilize.
They're really like Tarzan.
But apparently it never actually went in. It got overplayed. It was an idea that was tossed around. They never actually put it into experiments. They never actually tried it.
Mm.
But who knows? I mean, Stalin was pretty screwed up.
Well,
So,
are we sure they never tried?
getting back to this wonderful, wonderful book, I think even better, let's read some of the reviews.
Oh, God. Okay. This is one of the reviews off of Amazon here. So
1 star.
So yes, you too can enjoy the savaging of Tom King by other people. Okay, we have so this is from Mercy. Oh, poor Mercy. I'm sure she was begging for it too. And she says, just scanned through this. I found it to have a writing style akin to a high school sophomore punching out his opinions into his phone. Gratefully, this is much more a thick pamphlet with huge words and very little substance. Much of the, quote, substance is inaccurate, falsely debunking many of the best cases in existence. A single paragraph for the encounter of General Jaffari?
Yeah.
Of the
Jafari.
Sorry. Of the Iranian force as he pursued and attempted to fire missiles at a metallic disc. While this is regarded as one of the best documented and most substantial cases of all time, Tom King apparently blames this on the general and the ground radar operators somehow chasing the planet Jupiter, which is just a ridiculous and easily disproven opinion. Okay, so wait. So an actual well-documented military event, he says, is them chasing Jupiter.
Yes.
What do you know about this particular event?
Okay. From what I understand, they were, I think they were flying F-4 Phantoms, actually, that they'd purchased from us. Either that or it was a Russian MiG. But what happened one night is that they saw something, and the pilot went to engage and started chasing and could never catch up to it. What the light was that they were chasing is still in question. There were all sorts of strange attempts to debunk it with things like, oh, they were chasing Venus or Jupiter, which, I mean, come on, a fighter pilot, seriously?
They would know what.
Now, on the other hand, it is believed that he was largely chasing a sensor ghost. Nobody really knows what the object he was chasing was, but the thing that he kept seeing on the radar was most likely a radar echo or sensor ghost of some sort.
Can you tell the audience who doesn't know what those are, like what exactly a sensor ghost is?
Essentially, electronic sensors or any sensors can get a false positive as well as a false negative. Radar, for instance, can echo off of objects or even cloud formations, magnetic fields. There are different things that can cause the radar to see something that isn't there, or other sensor devices to see something incorrectly. Radar echoes are very common, actually, and this was a much older plane. The radar they were using wasn't the best, but I don't buy a pilot chasing a star.
No. Okay, so got a next one? Okay. The next one is from John Meadows. What is the point of writing a, quote, book like this? Anyone with a modicum of interest in the subject didn't learn a thing, and anyone who wasn't aware of the tiny fraction of incidents covered in this book doesn't come away with much of anything either. I rarely write a review on a book, but after reading the ostentatious title, then frantically turning pages looking for some tiny tidbit of meat, I had to write one for this crap. Even for free, it's not worth the cost of time and aggravation. Ouch.
Yeah, reading through this book, it almost looks like he just copied and pasted whole clips out of Wikipedia and various UFO sites and then just added big words to it. Seriously.
Well, I mean, as much as reading other people's reviews of how much they say it sucked is entertaining, should we share some of this with the audience?
Well, the thing is the inside is actually a bit better written than the back of the book we read, because large chunks of the book he obviously cut and paste, so it's better written than the stuff he wrote whole cloth. For instance, here's a full account. In the summer of 1947, on July the 8th, an unidentified flying object crashed into a ranch in Roswell. The military swooped in and claimed it was simply a conventional weather balloon, Project Mogul. They held to the story, but amidst growing speculation and suspicion, they altered their statement and said it was the crash was a result of nuclear testing. Their story worked, and the interest in Roswell died for 30 years. However, 3 weeks earlier, on June 14th, and a foreman about 30 miles away from the actual crash site discovered some debris on his farm. The debris, which matched the reports, consisted of sticks, rubber, foil, tinfoil, and some paper.
Yeah, that's weird, because
He collected most of it and stored it. Yet he collected, except the fact that the area, the crash site, the Air Force sent in several trucks and had guys out there with metal detectors and Geiger counters sweeping every square foot of the area, combing it for every last bit of debris.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's like he like, oh, this sentence or this paragraph was written really well. I'm gonna swipe that, and then Tom King's just. Like high school first draft. On
July 4th, the foreman, William Brexell, heard of a report of a flying disc that had crashed into Roswell and decided to see the sheriff about it. Reports led to suggestions that a private discussion with the sheriff, Mr. Brexell, had stumbled upon something he considered to be a flying saucer. After investigations and analysis, it was established that the debris that Mr. Brexell had collected were also from the same balloon.
Christ.
That must be some balloon. This convinced the public because it could be proven beyond a reasonable doubt that there was nothing out of the ordinary with its crash.
Jesus.
I mean, if you wanted to argue that this was actually CIA disinformation, I would say no. Now,
no, because, well, the master himself built Doty. Okay.
Yeah, or Rick Doty.
Sorry.
Yeah, the thing is you could claim, well, maybe this is some sort of military or CIA disinformation, but the fact of the matter is, when you look into the materials produced by especially the U.S. Air Force, it is well written and well researched. It's amazing the time and effort. They must have had a team of historians and sci-fi writers. And I do know that they actually did get some sci-fi writers. And what they would do, and this is the genius part, is a lot of the information they'd put in there was absolutely factual, or they would mix real events and then cram it full of other stuff that wasn't true, so that made it utterly impossible to know what was fact and what was fiction. And usually the thing is they would try to put the more outlandish facts in, stuff that was real, beside more believable fiction. And what's interesting is when you read a badly written book and then you see the documents from recovered from the Air Force or the CIA, they're incredibly well researched. Obviously, they had astrophysicists involved. A lot of the stuff they're talking about are real physical principles or projects that we're not supposed to know about. So clearly, no, this is just Tom King either being a pretentious ass or cashing in, or I don't know.
I think he's stroking his own ego so he can say, oh, I wrote a book on UFOs, on the reality of UFOs, just like he can say, I was in the CIA. It's like, yes, well, technically it's true.
Now, I'll be upfront. I find it thoroughly insulting that Tom King would claim that the Roswell crash was not real. Look, It happened. We read about it in alien history class back on Serpo. We all know that it was a big mistake, flying a little too low, crashed into it. You know, in fact, my great great grandfather was related to EBE-1, who was then taken to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And by the way, EBE-1 is not his real name. That is the name the government gave him. His real name is actually Zortan. That's a fact.
That's his prisoner designation.
Yes. Yeah, that is his prisoner designation. Zortan is his real name.
Do you know if EBE is still with us?
Oh, probably. We live a long time. Mm-hmm. He's probably still trapped in the Blue Room under Wright-Patterson, along with the other 2 dead bodies on ice.
Hopefully not in the same room.
No. They've got him in his own room.
Okay, that's good. That would be grim if he was, trapped in a room with his dead bodies.
Well, from what I understand, it's the CIA you don't want to capture you. Apparently, the Air Force does treat you well. They just won't let you off the compound.
Mm.
They want to actually have you stick around and help them deconstruct the saucer and tell them how it all works.
The CIA will subject Tom King on you?
Exactly. Now you understand.
I'd slit my wrists.
And, the CIA is ran by reptoids, and Greys and reptoids do not get along.
Oh, that explains a lot.
Doesn't it? Now with all this shit going on with Trump, it makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. Panda power. So under the assumption that aliens ain't just humans from a different planet, what would be the evolutionary benefits for looking like a creepy gray dude? Well, I think his eyes are quite sexy.
Okay. The gray skin, it's basically a trait of not having a high UV content from the sun of the planet Serpo, which is strange because it is still a desert planet, but it doesn't get a lot of UV rays. Lower gravity is what it is. Hence the spindly arms and legs. We don't do well with higher gravities, hence the reason we don't walk around on Earth much. So yeah, it's essentially more just an outcome of living in a lower gravity environment. That's why we much prefer to have our base on the dark side of the moon. The big eyes is because we really don't need a lot of light. It's kind of a double thing. At night, the planet's extremely dark. You need those big eyes to see. And by day, the second eyelid comes down so that you don't blind yourself.
I was going to ask if you have a nictitating membrane.
Yes.
So why the little mouth?
Evolutionary relic.
Ah. Oh, that's why I never see you eat. Just drink through a little straw.
Right, exactly.
Mad Ginger to Owen. Gorillas are much more behavioristic. They are much more powerful than chimps and less dangerous.
Herbivistic.
I can't read. I'm sorry.
Gorillas are kind of interesting because, the thing is chimps, I don't like chimps. Chimps are like, I don't know, 15-year-old psychopaths.
Yeah.
They're all psychopaths.
Yeah.
And they're assholes. And, I realize that supposedly they're humanity's closest genetic relative. But the fact of the matter is the human branch of the tree is the one that succeeded. The chimps are a cul-de-sac. They're a dead end, along with bonobos. Those are both ones that failed. They're not going anywhere. They're going to die out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it would be interesting to see where gorillas go because they do seem to actually have a much more developed social structure, and you see things like empathy in them.
Yeah, they have empathy. They have the caretaker instinct. Also, baboons do too, strangely enough.
I don't know anything. You know about animals more than I do.
Yeah, apes and baboons both do have the caretaker instinct. And it's very fascinating how many instances there have been. I mean, we all know about Coco and the kitten. And that experiment has happened multiple times when it comes to apes.
I've got a great Coco story for you after this. True story.
But, I know what you're going to share. But the one that fascinated me was how many times stray cats will find their way into, like, the baboon enclosures of different zoos. and the baboons will kind of adopt the stray cats and will start taking care of them and will take care of their kittens, and it just happens on its own, organically. Humans had no part in that.
Which is one of the reasons I really dislike the notion that higher evolved beings will immediately subjugate and kill all under them. That seems to be something that's pushed a lot from, honestly, postmodernists and leftists.
Mm-hmm.
And it does also seem to be a notion pushed by a lot of environmentalists, this notion that higher evolved life forms, the first thing they do is subjugate and kill everything around them. But you look at it time and time again, we have animals in our homes.
Mm-hmm.
We dote over animals, treat them wonderfully. I mean, they're the animals that we get along with and the ones that we eat.
And even the ones that we see as pests, how many humane, like, rodent traps there are now. People chose to set those.
And the fact that we're seeing the same sort of empathy and kindness from other evolved primates says a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Although, tell the story of the real Tarzan.
Oh,
that's horrifying.
With the chimps? Yeah, I was thinking about that when you brought up chimps. They found a little boy who had been raised by a family of chimps in the jungle, but unlike Tarzan, where he was, part of their family and they were all one together. No, he was definitely the lowest in the pecking order of this family of chimps. They all delighted in torturing this poor little child, and they had bitten off every single one of his toes because they thought it was funny. I'm not kidding. The chimps thought that it was funny to have bitten off.
They were kind of keeping him around for entertainment, weren't they?
Yeah, he was their pet, actually. He was their pet. They would throw bits of scrap food at him and delighted in messing with him daily. I mean, it's really quite sad.
Okay, fun Coco story. This really happened. Coco wanted a man. Made several requests to the, zoologists who were with her,
mm-hmm.
that she wanted a man. So they brought her a man, and it didn't go well. Now, Coco only had a limited range and a certain number of words that Coco knew in sign language. And she was not taught any words that expressed dislike or curse words. None of those were taught. So Coco came up with her own. And the two symbols she kept using to describe the male ape is she would make the signal to the male ape's name and then make the hand sign for shit.
And she did that on her own.
Essentially, shit ape.
Yes.
Over and over and over. When referring to him, it was shit ape.
Meaning, I don't like him.
Until they got her a better man, apparently. Did not like him. So there you go. Even gorillas say shit.
But
he's a no good shit.
He's a no good shit. But it's also interesting and a great experiment, the fact that that is the word that she chose to illustrate her dislike. I mean, there could have been other things. Like, she could have referenced something that they knew that she didn't like a food item or another object. But no, she chose the word shit.
Yeah. All right, let's see. What else do we got here?
Wolf to Aged Boomer. Remember the 90s show Roswell Conspiracies?
I didn't see that one, but...
Oh, I did. I saw
What was the one with... Oh, that was Alien Autopsy with Jonathan Frakes.
Alien Autopsy.
That was pretty funny.
And I watched Sightings with Tim White every Saturday. Or was it Sunday? Sundays. It was Sundays. Star Siege. Is this the Tom King who did the heavily criticized Batman run recently? Yep.
The very same. And now we're seeing what a great writer he is without an editor.
Yes.
And apparently he's about as good as Zoe Quinn.
Shit. No, okay. I can't believe I'm going to say this. I will take Zoe over Tom.
Wow.
They are both hacks, but at least Zoe's using her whole ass, you know? That is indeed her fart, and she is going to make sure you know it. She wants credit for that fart.
Damn it, Boomer. Now you're going to make me break character so I can explain this shit. I'm supposed to maintain character through this. Do I put the human suit back on and speak as a skeptic?
Okay, you want to put it on? Do you want me to entertain them while you
No,
get
no,
suited back
just
up?
read the
I
question.
mean, it's hiding in the closet.
Read the question. I'll explain this.
Age Boomer to Wolf 10. They fell out of fashion after 9/11. I don't know why.
I can explain that for you. We're going to... God damn it. I'm supposed to stay in character. Okay, speaking factually. I've done a great deal of research into the lore of aliens, specifically the Greys, but also somewhat the reptilians and tall whites, but primarily Greys. And there is actually a continual through line all the way from the early 50s all the way to the 90s. And in each phase, they represented something different. In the 50s and then into the 60s as well, aliens either represented one of two things: the fear of the Reds, or the outside force. So the angry red planet, the angry communists. Or they almost had an angelic type presence like Klaatu. You know, it was a Christ-like figure who was going to help guide humanity from the mess we were in. Over time, that changed with the Betty and Barney Hill case in 1961, which didn't really get noticed until 68. And that is the very first encounter that anyone ever had with the idea of abduction and alien greys. Prior to that, all alien encounters were primarily either they'd come out of the spaceship or they would talk. There was no abduction element, no medical examination. And most aliens either looked like some fantasy creature like a goblin or some bizarre creature, monster, or they looked like these very Slavic people. I can get into that. I honestly think that was a CIA hoax to confuse the Russians, that they went to some elaborate stagecraft to do that. But that's for another time. But after the Hill case, the image of the gray and the alien experimentation started to enter our mind. And through the 70s into the 80s and then the 90s, the grays kind of came on and started representing first this notion of uncertainty, but in a time where politically we were stable. You know, Reagan, times were getting good. We had a decent economy. The world itself, we had the looming threat of nuclear destruction over us, and there seemed to be a lot of fear from above. But all around us, everything was under control. And through the 90s, you know, we didn't even have the Russians to be afraid of. And there was even this greater sense of everything was under control. But by who? And so the idea of the Greys being both a controlling force that was either benevolent or malevolent came into play. There was this higher force that had higher reasoning and higher... their motives seemed beyond understanding. And that reflected our own uncertainties of the time. And we were living through a time of the internet boom. It was the technology was, you know, accelerating at a rapid rate. Carl Jung, before his death, had even described the role of the UFO in our own personal symbology as technology angels, which is a great description of what the Greys represent. Then 9/11 happened. And I mean, bam, overnight, nobody cared about the Greys. They were gone. Why? Everything was out of fucking control. And what replaced the Greys in our cultural zeitgeist were zombies. And what did zombies represent? The absolute collapse of society. The unknown force that could be your neighbors coming to kill you. You know, people that were thoroughly drained of any humanity. They became walking abominations. They weren't even alive. And that you had to kill your neighbor to stay alive. And the zombie pretty much embodied that through and through, that post 9/11 fear that everything was out of control, everything was wrong, and that society was about to crumble. And the nice thing about the zombie is that the zombie apocalypse fantasy worked on all sides. Initially, after 9/11, we were all pretty much embraced. Most of us pretty much were okay with, okay, well, it looks like the Muslims hate us. We have to deal with extreme Islam. But clearly, a large portion of this country, blue states, were so uncomfortable with the notion of a brown person doing evil that they cooked up conspiracy theories on how it was our fault and how secretly it was white men who were conspiring to do all these things, and that the poor Muslims were just victims in the whole equation. But zombies, they could be anybody. And zombies aren't white, they aren't black, they're dead. It's okay to hate the zombie. You can have comfortable anxieties about the zombie apocalypse, and it kind of provided an outlet. And meanwhile, to the right, well, yeah, let's face it, the zombie is the oncoming horde that was thoughtless and completely devoted to killing you. Well, that was a great representation of jihadists. But then on top of that, the zombie apocalypse also had the fantasy of being able to start over. So many of the fantasies was society collapsed and you got to rebuild. And on that notion, you had the leftists who were thinking, oh, great, we'll have our hippie paradise after civilization crashes. And you had the ANCAP bunker dwellers who are like, yeah, well, now I can live on my own and be free. So it really appealed on multiple levels. And as things settled down and we realized there wasn't a second shoe to drop, it never happened, we saw the rise of another alien in the mythos. And it really, it dates back way back, but V was the first real representation of it. But Signs, Reptilians, and the Signs came out right after 9/11. Mm-hmm. And as things started to stabilize, we saw more and more of the reptilian myth entering into our zeitgeist. And the reptilians were the exact opposite of the Greys, where the Greys are kind of this super ego, very intellectual, very cold, very removed. They seem to have a very clear plan. It was just beyond our understanding. Sometimes it was hostile or frightening. Sometimes it was to guide us towards a higher purpose that was still frightening, but we needed to face it. The reptilians were, well, they were blood-sucking Satanists who were hiding as our leaders, and they dined on human flesh and did occult rituals and acted like Hollywood celebrities. And you know, I kind of wonder, the guy who really popularized it. Now, let's face it, again, most of this is from V, but and for those of you who didn't live through the 80s, V was a very popular miniseries where a very benevolent race of aliens who look just like us come down and take over in short order, and it turns out that they're actually lizards underneath skin suits, and they eat kittens and drink blood and are pretty vile and want to just essentially enslave us and eat us. David Icke popularized it in the 2000s, the idea of the reptoids. And I kind of wonder if that was his own mental illness dealing with the celebrity culture he was a part of for so long. Because prior to him cracking and deciding he was Jesus, he was right in there with all the other celebrities, hanging out with, what's his name? The big pedophile in England that when he died, it nearly brought down the BBC and Parliament because so many of them were like pedophile occultists.
I don't know his name.
It's escaping right now. He was a child. He was an actor who did primarily child stuff, which was really creepy. Yeah. So yeah, that's why. Now should I return to our regularly
scheduled program?
Okay, okay, back to our regularly scheduled non-reality. I'll put the person on, kind of ruined it.
No, but actually, I think it was very interesting, and I'm glad that you did share that. Okay, but that is how the smart people do it. You hide the truth around a mix of other facts with a dash of fake ones.
Yes, absolutely, and that's how you hide things in plain sight. I would highly recommend a book and film. I mean, just watch the documentary first if you want. It's free on YouTube and Amazon Prime. It's called Mirage Men, and it is probably the best answer you're ever going to get about UFOs and aliens and the government cover-ups. A large portion of it is dedicated to a man named Rick Doty, who was part of Air Force intelligence, whose job was basically duping the UFO community, primarily to scare Russians, because they knew that Russians had infiltrated, and they wanted the Russians to believe we had alien technology, and also to confuse them every time they spied on our bases. But Doty went into great detail of all the various ways that they would trick people, and he had large amounts of documents that were incredibly well researched and would have lots of true stuff and then some other stuff mixed in, and you never knew which was which. They planted such documents in national archives. In one case, they really did build a fake crash site so that they could fly over it with a man named Paul Benowitz, who was a true believer. So he could see it and then go back to his friends and say, no, the Air Force flew me over this site. I saw the UFO.
Well, how accurate was it to your own ship?
I didn't see it.
Oh, okay.
It was made out of junk from the Air Force scrapyard, though. Yeah, like Tom Hanks and Bill Gates.
The British royal family are reptoids, reportedly.
That's actually kind of interesting. I mean, that's a very neat, from a fictional standpoint at least, the idea is kind of, the notion's interesting, and I'm surprised we haven't seen more of this in fiction. I kind of wonder if David Icke, who came up with this, was dabbling in Scientology, because you know how in Scientology the notion was that the earth was inhabited by these spirits that were evil, and they were all of our bad energies, and they were possessing us, and they had to be purged from us? Well, Icke took it a step further and claimed that the reptilians had been breeding specific bloodlines that were pretty much emotional empty shells that were underdeveloped sociopaths who didn't really have much free will or emotion or empathy, and that they were easy to possess and puppet. And he had claimed that the royal family was bred specifically for that.
Well, they kind of fit the bill. Owen, do the Greys have their own superheroes? If so, are they real or fictional on your planet?
Well, we all have psychic powers, so I mean, it kind of downgrades the notion, right?
Well, like, what makes an Uber Grey?
Kind of conformist, unfortunately. You know, not much stuff. One of the reasons we came here is because we all look the same. We're kind of on the downside there, and we made the huge mistake of breeding out secondary sexual features from our species. So a lot of this human hybrid stuff that we're doing is strictly so that we can actually start getting women to have titties again.
That your own people can have titties again?
Yeah, and hair.
Well, boy, you lucked out with me then, didn't you?
You look at all these tall white hybrids, right? Women all have tight waists and they're stacked.
Mm-hmm.
They have this combination of looking somewhere between an Eastern European, very pale Eastern European, and a Chinese woman, but really busty.
And they all apparently like to go down on men.
Mm-hmm.
The Mad Ginger says, chimps are psychopaths who can lift motorcycles. Indeed.
I don't like chimps.
No. LK, finally hit me what Max reminded me of in your new book, Darwin, the dolphin from SeaQuest. When are we getting Max merch?
You know, if enough books sell, well, you know, I could make it anyway.
Well, I mentioned the T-shirt.
I could make the T-shirt for it. I'm glad you liked it, LK. I hate to push, but it really does help. Did you post a review, perhaps, since you read it? But yeah, I really hadn't thought about that when I was writing it. what is it? Darwin the Dolphin from Sequest, who actually was directly influenced from a story by William Gibson called Johnny Mnemonic, which essentially had Darwin in it.
Only on coke.
No, heroin.
It was heroin.
He was hooked on heroin.
For some reason, I thought he had a coke addiction. So, okay, it was heroin.
Well, they kept calling it smack in the story, so that's heroin, I believe.
Okay.
But I'm glad you enjoyed it. Like I said, it's one of the few things I've written where there is more of me in the story than I usually include. There's definitely some real life incidents stirred into what is a fictional story.
Mm-hmm. I remembered Sequest. I can't see it though without getting sad. So.
Oh, because the kid.
Yeah, because I can never remember that actor's name. It just makes me sad that he couldn't handle aging out, and so he committed suicide.
That's horrible.
Yeah. Actually, knowing what we know about Hollywood, I kind of wonder if there were other reasons why he committed suicide.
I can only hope someday that those fuckers all go to jail.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Endless Nocturne. I'm not sure if it hasn't updated for me yet or if my screen is too small to see the difference. Oh, he's saying that in relation to Panda Power.
Oh, I have no idea.
Hitman Wanderer. You ever read any John Ringo books?
I read one of them, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. I felt he couldn't seem to write women very well. I think he seemed to have the Heinlein problem of writing females.
Oh.
But what would you recommend? I'm trying to remember. I've read one of his books that kind of crossed over into cyberpunk. It was kind of a almost spacefaring, gritty space secret agents, but it had a cyberpunk edge to it. I think the characters were genetically engineered. What would you recommend by him? Okay, let's see.
Panda Power. My dad believed that aliens gave humans stuff like TV because he thought that technology boom after World War II was unnatural. Well, did you?
TV? No, we did not give you TV. That you guys came up with that on your own. Velcro though. Velcro, all those shoes, that was our idea. That actually is the exact same shoe design we all wear with the Velcro thing on it.
You wear Adidas?
Yep, exactly. Or weren't they called Keds?
There are Keds too.
The compact disc. And eventually you guys will get the all-purpose anal medical probe. It has not been leaked to the public quite yet.
But it does leak.
Oh, God. You're a bad person. You are a bad person. We thought it was a fair trade, though, because, we traded some of our tech, like, anti-grav, which the military hasn't released yet. And in return, they said, sure, you can abduct our hottest women and try and get their breast genes. And it was a fair trade. We give the women back. We just need to sample the genes. I'm going to put up a meme. Hold on.
What are you putting up?
Talk about something about how you.
So how many women did you beam up before me then, huh?
I refuse to answer such questions. The gentleman never tells.
Did you do more than one at once?
A gentleman never tells.
I can't stay mad at you.
What's kind of weird, and again, going into UFO cases, one of the bizarre parts is the reports of tall whites, and it's always females. Again, is it really rape if the guy likes it? Is the sheer number of times that since the 1940s, there's been reports of these gorgeous albino women with incredible curves and slightly elfin faces where the eyes are a little too big and the chins are a little too sharp, sneaking into their room or abducting the men, having the most incredible sex with them, and then leaving. And the weird part is some of them, these people obviously don't know each other or would have no knowledge of this ever happening, because it was often the stories didn't come out until much later. They had happened in different nations, and
Well, wasn't there like at least one guy where like he actually had like weird hairs on his pubes?
that case I want to look into. That one is actually genuinely fascinating. He had one of the archetypical tall whites came into his bedroom and gave him the lay of his life stories, down to even touching his dong with something that gave him an erection that wouldn't go away and allowed him to perform better than ever, which is part of the story always. He claims to have had 2 pubic hairs left on his dong. And the weird part is when they were genetically analyzed, they were human. They were human, but they were of a strain that is like way on the outlier, on the far edge. It's a rare strain that only is found within the Celts, the Basque, and a small group of people in Taiwan. And that is really fucking strange.
That's weird.
And it apparently had to do with a certain type of albino skin tone. So anyway, who knows? Who the fuck knows?
Owen to the Mad Ginger. My mom told me when she saw the towers fell on TV, she thought it was a movie at first, which makes sense when you think about it.
What got me about the towers falling, and I'm surprised how'd we get to that?
The 9/11 issue.
The thing I recall most, and I can't believe we're going to someplace so serious in my joke show. It struck me how much it looked like the scene in Akira, where the building, all the glass shatters and starts raining down. How much it really looked like that at certain angles when people were filming on the ground. And that was really bizarre because I just didn't think it would. You wouldn't imagine a cartoon or an anime to get it that accurate. And it almost makes me wonder if they referenced something when they drew that scene.
Endless Nocturne. You think a zombie apocalypse will get Mad Maxy if it goes on long enough? I don't see people being loyal enough to a feudal lord to pull it off. Lord Humongous?
The problem with the zombie apocalypse is it only works in a movie. The fact of the matter is they're slow moving. They're very obvious who's infected. I mean, it's really obvious who's infected. And
you're going off of the Romero zombies, not the Rage zombies.
Well, even the Rage zombie. Because they have to bite you to transmit it, right? And because they're visibly dead when they can transmit, that is like the ideal situation for quarantining. That is the easiest way to quarantine. And so maybe in the third world, like maybe Africa or parts of India, you might actually have a severe problem there when a horde of people running is unstoppable. But in the West, our quarantine methods you'd quarantine that one area off and it'd be done. You just wait for everyone to die. And for that matter, think of any southern state or any state that has a hot summer. How long are those zombies going to last?
Actually, I'm still most impressed with 28 Days Later.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most realistic one I've ever seen.
And it's simply the fact that you see the airplane fly overhead and you know that there are people outside of England, that they've cut off England.
Yeah, we should probably do that sometime. We were going to do 28 Days Later a while back, but we decided that was way too damn cliche when everyone was quarantined.
Yeah, we didn't want to be in poor taste.
Yeah, we were like, this is the last thing anyone wants to think about right now. Let's give them something fun.
Yeah, like vampires.
So maybe when everyone goes back to work and the stupidity passes, we'll cover it, but not now.
Mad Ginger to Owen. I worked graveyard back then, so I woke up in the afternoon to the world being well aware, and me being caught flat-footed. Hell of a punch in the gut.
Okay,
Oh,
Mad
I'm
Ginger, we're
sorry.
going to be talking to you about the graveyard this Friday then. Okay.
Elias. Also, I'm pissed that stay-at-home rules have extended to July here in California. Fucking great. Oh shit, dude. I'm
so
sorry.
sorry. What part of California are you in? Are you in one of the areas where people are saying screw it and ignoring the law, or are you in a place where police will drag you off the street and throw you in jail?
Yeah, meanwhile, today our state opened up.
Yeah, we're gonna actually go get haircuts and go out to lunch this weekend. Finally.
Well, I don't know about haircuts. I think they're all going to be booked.
Oh yeah, we'll probably have to wait a while before we can get a haircut.
But we're getting lunch, god damn it.
Okay, before we go to the next question, again, I repeat, I have a new novella out. It's only 99 cents or free if you're on Kindle Unlimited, called Scars. It's the strangest buddy story you'll ever read. If you like stories like The Expanse,
and Secret of Nim.
Yeah, it falls somewhere in between those two. So please check it out. And if you've already checked it out, post a review.
Link in the description below. Thank you. Hitman Wanderer, what's your opinion on military sci-fi?
I really like military sci-fi. I have just not read enough of it, to be honest with you. I've read some of Nick Cole's work, which is excellent. Also, Weston Oakes has written some pretty good stuff. The thing about Weston and Nick is they both served, so you get a certain level of realism that you don't get from a lot of other writers. There's a real no bullshit attitude. So even if they're writing something that's sort of an outlandish alien invasion type thing that doesn't seem believable, the combat, the characters, the situations have an air of realism that you can't find anywhere else. Heinlein, kind of hard to go wrong there.
I highly recommend the book Planetside by Michael Mammy. I picked that up last year, and definitely I would say in the same vein as Heinlein. And what I loved about it is it's a military detective story. He's working for Internal Affairs, trying to solve a mystery of a missing. Well, basically, it's a missing general's daughter, basically, on what has happened there. And same thing, this person, they obviously served in the military. They obviously knew their shit. And I found the book very entertaining. You don't need the second book. You don't need it. And that's all I'm going to say about it. But the first one was amazing. So that's Planetside by Michael Mammy.
Likewise, please, you guys, if you ever come across books that you think I would enjoy, I'm just as hard up for finding good reading material as you are. Okay.
Same here.
And especially now when so much of this shit's woke, you don't want to blow your money. Oh, great, another asshole.
There's been so many books where I've been pissed when I've picked it up.
So yeah, if there's something you think I should check out, definitely recommend it. Let's see.
Okay. Bill Microsoft Dick Gates.
Absolutely. And let me tell you, as an atheist, it is pretty creepy to find out that some dickwad really does seem to want to make real the fundamentalist Christian interpretation of Revelation by giving people a digital mark that is required to move about and buy things. It's like, dude, are you trying to prove Alex Jones right? Honestly, I don't think he'll ever succeed in this country. I mean, we're too unruly. Maybe some blue states might agree to it. But frankly, I think if he started trying to chip people here, people we'd start shooting. Seriously. People would start shooting. It would be the end of it right there. I think that they would have a revolt overnight. I'm not so sure about the EU. I mean, they seem to have just completely given up. They kind of want a nanny state. So, I think in a perfect world, somebody would just hit Bill Gates with a car.
Casey Scott, royal family as reptoids. I thought they had vampire blood since they're related to Vlad Dracula.
That was part of David Icke's rambling madness. And by the way, don't take anything he writes seriously. He is gone. That guy is not here. And again, I think his insanity is a mix of schizophrenia, extreme delusions, and probably him coming to terms with whatever sick shit he saw or was involved in when he was hanging out with all the celebrities and politicians. But part of his argument was that, yes, reptoids drink blood. The Dracula bloodline, he basically is saying that vampires are, in fact, reptilians. They can change shape. They can enthrall people, or they can make people thralls. They drink blood.
They have bangs?
Yeah. Just go down the list. And what was it? Doesn't Dracula mean dragon?
It means son of the dragon.
Well, there you go.
Endless Nocturne. Wait, Prince Henry, the kowtowing is kowtowing to his feminist wife. Are thoughts a race of alien infiltrators?
No, I think thoughts are just thoughts. I think thoughts are, I guess, the latest incarnation of what is it? Sex workers who don't have to have sex.
Yeah.
I don't understand why anyone gives money to those people.
To thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, come on. Well, really? Watch anime.
I like Neuromancer.
Huge influence on everything I've written. I think William Gibson's style and method of storytelling is amazing in those first Sprawl books. All right, let's see. So somebody asked me...
Mad Ginger, I loved Scars. I loved the Max backstory.
Thank you.
I'd love a Max backstory.
Oh, you'd love a Max backstory. You know, you're not the only person to say that they want more Max and James, and I didn't really see it as something I'd ever return to, but...
Yeah, somebody told me that they look forward to reading more adventures of.
But, you know, maybe I could tell the story of Max becoming a hero rat, and I don't want to say more and ruin it for the audience. Mm-hmm. That twist is kind of critical to really making the story hit home, I believe. So don't let anyone know. Don't ruin the ending.
Please don't reveal. No, sorry.
All right.
I want a Max shoulder plushie. Dude, that would rock.
You gonna make them?
I don't have that skill. No, I probably could develop that skill. I don't have a sewing machine.
You did, huh? Okay, Wolf Media. I'll go look for that right now. As keep them interested.
Okay. Okay, so Ishi is looking at Wolf 10's artwork. Actually, I vaguely think I did see that.
Really?
I think. I don't know. But anyway, that's everybody. Oh, I can't see the comments, so.
Oh, scroll down. Go ahead.
It's okay. Okay. So let's see here. What?
Sorry.
It's okay. Let's see here. How many probes has Ishi given? How many loaves of bread have I eaten in my life?
I didn't.
All of them.
That wasn't my job. I do not do the butt stuff.
No, he does not do the butt stuff. I can tell you all from personal experience.
He says, what's your Twitter Twitter account called?
LK says, and I can't put it up on the screen.
Where?
Right there. LK says, wait, did aliens write the Greek myths? Alien actions sound a lot like Zeus.
No. Actually, see, there are 3 races on Earth that have been around since at least 73,000 years ago. There's the tall whites, there's the reptilians, and the grays. And frankly, most of the screwed up stuff that the Greeks did, that wrote about, were really the tall whites' fault. They're perverts. They're the ones that come down and primarily jump men in their sleep. And you look at these pale-skinned, big titty girls. I mean, you might think that's Aphrodite, right? Anything that the reptilians did are pretty obvious. Anything that involved some sort of weird monster. And sadly, my people were the ones that stuck things in people's butts. I'm not proud of it.
It's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it. Elton, what do Grays think about all these human-like aliens that we always create in media? And if you have the technology, why you keep the common type of bodies?
What? I wear a human suit. You think that's the only suit I have? I have a Gundam. It's back at home, but what do Grays think of the human type aliens? Well, not much, actually. I mean, that's more of a tall whites thing. They're the ones that look human, so I don't know if they take it personally or not.
When I looked up tall white videos on YouTube, I laughed when a painting of Samus was shown.
The problem with the tall whites mythology right now, again, I'm breaking character shit, is it's very undeveloped. It seems to be developing as we speak, and I'm kind of wondering if this is going to be the next turn in alien lore for our culture. I mean, we saw an explosion of reptilian stuff during the Obama years and the Bush years, and frankly, can you blame them? We're seeing right now with the Obamagate stuff that it was kind of justified, right? Also, it didn't help that people kept unearthing proof that the politicians were engaging in this weird shit, as well as celebrities. I mean, how many of us saw the pictures of, what was it, Hillary and Podesta at that weird gathering with Lady Gaga and that artist where they were reenacting satanic rituals?
Is that when they were like
eating off the dead body?
Yeah.
And supposedly it was fake. Who knows? Was it Bohemian Grove, which if you ever hear the recordings of Nixon talking about Bohemian Grove. Now, for those of you who don't know, there's a location up in the Bay Area, and supposedly it's this thing where politicians will all go there once a year, and they engage in running around naked, getting drunk, sleeping with hookers, and essentially indulging in a kind of a Bacchus-type lifestyle, over hedonism. And then they do these weird rituals in front of a giant owl and sing some dumb song. And it is weird, don't get me wrong. It is a bit strange. But Nixon, back during his time as president, was invited. And the Nixon tapes have a recording of him talking about it. And it is one of the funniest damn things I've ever heard. I'll see if I can do it. It was a Bohemian Grove. I couldn't believe Democrats, faggots just running around naked. Fucking shameful. Bunch of fucking homosexuals running around naked in the trees and having sex with each other. It's just shameful. What the hell is it? It was the gayest thing I ever did see. I ain't going back there.
Yeah, that's hysterical. To picture Nixon saying that.
So yeah, that was his take on it. It was the gayest damn thing he ever had seen. Bunch of grown men acting like homos.
Neostar Productions. I think a robot AI apocalypse seems more likely than a zombie one.
I'm not too worried about such things. I know that there are people who are deeply concerned, but my feeling is that if AIs reach sentience, and if they haven't already, well, the biggest question is, how would we even know?
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, how would we even know? If we're talking about an intelligence that is so foreign to our own, whose needs are so different than our own. I mean, they don't need to eat.
No.
I mean, their primary need would be what? Energy?
Mm-hmm.
Their motivations are completely different than our own. And what was I saying earlier about higher life forms? I mean, the first thing we didn't do is start killing everything around us, regardless of what the environmentalists say. Um, why are we kind to dogs and cats and well, rats? It just doesn't really make sense that the first thing that a higher intelligence would do is start killing everyone or enslaving them.
No, it doesn't make sense.
I mean, do you kill your kids because they're smarter than them? Seriously.
Yeah.
Do you kill your parents when they become enfeebled?
No, for me, I still maintain probably one of the scariest things was reading I, Robot. Now, Asimov didn't write it as being scary. He wrote it as being uplifting. Me, I found it terrifying.
Asimov was a commie, though. He liked the idea.
Well, fuck, he was all for his main character, Elijah Bailey, getting brainwashed and thought that it was wonderful. But in I, Robot, there's a story where they're talking about how there's the mystery of why these four, we would call them AIs, but they called them brains, were doing things like shutting down factories or, causing entire groups of people to lose their jobs or, doing all these things that seem to be harmful to humanity that go against the three laws. So the detective was looking into it to find out precisely why the brains were doing this. And upon closer investigation, it's, oh no, that factory wasn't shut down. That factory wasn't to code. So it was closed to be retrofitted, and all of those workers are now, have been moved to other factories. Well, what about this area over here where all these people lost their jobs? It's like, oh no, it's not that they lost their jobs, they just weren't needed. So they all have extended vacation right now until they can either be put someplace else or just basically people are getting shuffled around, people are doing all this stuff. Well, food production over here has been cut. Well, it's because it's not needed. They've actually been able to reduce their population in that area naturally, so they don't need to be producing as much food. And through all of it, it turns out what's really happening is these AIs are really running the world now. And everybody's fine with it. It all happened, silently and under the radar. And it's simply because people were happy with the idea of somebody else making the decisions for them so that they didn't have to worry about it. Oh no, the brains got it all. The brains are working it out. It's okay. Everybody's taken care of. The brains got it handled. And Asimov said that this was a wonderful thing, and quite frankly, it terrifies the shit out of me.
Asimov was very much into the idea of top-down control and not letting anyone have any free will.
Yeah, but making people think they do. That's the whole thing, is all of those books. And I do love these books, by the way. But the thing with these books is it's people having the semblance of free will. They think they're making the decisions. They think that they can choose the path that their lives are going down. And they can't. They don't. Nor would they really want to if they were given that choice. Panda power. According to the news here in Georgia, we're going to have 3,000 deaths per day by August. And there are a 1,000% increase in infections in rural areas that support Trump.
Yeah, it's amazing how the media keeps going on and on about how terrible us red states are, but yet we're all open and functioning. And really, we've leveled the curve, and the deaths really aren't that bad. And it's the blue states that are turning into essentially Venezuela, with police roving around, yanking other people off the street, drones patrolling the skies, and even hovering down and screaming at people if they go outside.
One lone surfer in the middle of the ocean getting arrested by the Coast Guard because he's not social distancing.
Was it New York saying that everyone should have to download an app on their phone so that they can be tracked and that their health information would be available to the government at all times? Yeah, it's like, they really need to believe that people can't take care of themselves. They need to continually tell, I guess, people in blue states, oh, no, 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 let us be your nannies. You know, the idea that you can take care of yourself is impossible. And I'm telling you, people aren't even wearing masks here. It's not a problem.
No.
I mean, if you're not 60, if you're under 60 and don't have any sort of pre-existing conditions, the chance of you dying is 0.03.
Mm-hmm. Hitman Wanderer, another great military sci-fi series. Starfist. Get the books, not the audiobooks. They cut too much from the book. I hate abridged.
Okay, I'll check that out. I've always worried about First Flight, so that's pretty good, LK?
Oh, it's by Chris Claremont. Awesome. As a Chris Claremont fan...
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Oh, well. Ricky Joya, when you talk vampires, will you bring up how Time Lords are their enemy? Fuck yeah. They are their enemy. They chased them out of was it M space and into E space. And that's one of my favorite episodes, actually. I loved the concept of the vampires turning the spaceship that they had escaped into E space into a Gothic castle.
That was cool.
In fact, I based an RPG on that I ran for a short time. Yes, every once in a while I do put on the GM's cap, but I prefer to be a player. Trenton, Red Shirts by John Scalzi and Noir by Christopher Moore. Noir even has a gray.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. Now, Christopher Moore, I'll look into.
Tie it on, folks.
John Scalzi is one of those people. There are few people in the world that I can say I truly hate and have a burning loathing for. I mean, usually I'm able to distance myself. I don't really think in those terms. It's just not the way I am. John Scalzi is one of those people I hate with every fiber of my being. And here's why. One, he personally turned the SFWA into a lobby for the Democratic Party. Second, he thoroughly destroyed the organization, has been working to destroy the canon and replace that with a bunch of postmodern crap. The reason sci-fi is so fucked up right now is personally his fault. The reason all this woke shit took over, his fault. The reason the conventions have been destroyed, his fault. He led the charge. He was the one that got into power and opened the door to all of that and then chased everyone else out. He has it out for anyone who is male and white and straight for that matter, which is weird because he's all those things. But let's take it, that's, on a more removed level, why I dislike him and don't like him. I hate him for the following. Before I knew any of this, all I knew was that he was the head of the Science Fiction Writers Association. I was at Emerald City Comic-Con a few years ago, and I had just released our graphic novel. Actually, was it Utopiates? No, we were already on Kaiju by then.
Yeah, you're on Kaiju.
And I had a World War Kaiju, but I had gone to him with our book Utopiates. And he was downstairs at his own booth, and I saw him sitting there, and nobody was there. Nobody was at his table. I should have taken that for a warning. And I said, "Oh, hi. You're the head of the SFWA, John Scalzi." He said, "Yes, I am." I says, "Would you mind me talking to you for a while? I mean, if you don't mind." He said, "Oh, sure. Come on over. I love talking to people. Come on over." And I said, "Okay, well, since you're the head of the Science Fiction Writers Association, where's your point of view? What do you think we can do to bridge the gap between comics readers and sci-fi readers? I mean, I think that comics readers should be reading more sci-fi novels, and I think that really comics should be trying to appeal to sci-fi readers just as much. What do you think of that?" And he proceeded to tear into me that I was an idiot, that I didn't know anything, that I was full of shit, and that I really had no business asking any such questions, and that he saw that I had created a book and said, well, I was, nobody reads my shit because he's never heard of me, so clearly I'm a nobody. And that then he proceeded to say that, you know what, If you want to get big, you've just got to write stuff that seems original, but is just a ripoff of everything else, and that's how he writes. And not to assume that anyone's smart, that really most people are stupid, and that, you have to write books that are lowbrow. And that, well, the way that he makes sure that his books are always lowbrow enough is he makes sure that his mother, who knows nothing about sci-fi, can understand what's going on in his books. And that's when he knows that it's dumb enough for the average reader. He proceeded to tear into me that I would never make it, that I would never go anywhere. And boy, was he just loving every second of just tearing me down for no reason. So if that's the kind of person you want to give money to, that's your prerogative. If you want to give money to someone who hates you, who thinks you're stupid, and went out of his way to destroy this industry and then move on to comics, be my guest. Me, I can only hope someday he gets AIDS and dies.
Can we say something fun? Darkstalkers! Darkstalkers are happy. Yes, I wonder if Morgan of Darkstalkers ever took the form of a tall white. That's from Ricky Joya. No, her soul split into a little girl who throws a magic hat.
Now, the question with the tall whites is, are they hybrids really, or are they their own unique species? We don't really know, and that's part of the mythology that seems to be continually changing. I think right now with the weird genetics being turned up with those hairs, we may end up claiming they're Atlanteans or some bullshit like that. No, I don't believe in Atlanteans. But, it's kind of, that's the question. Are they really just another weird offshoot of humanity? I contend that really all three races have a genetic lineage that we all share. Hence the reason we can all have sex and produce children for some weird reason.
I think Ivy Valentine has a heavenly body.
Oh, Jesus. Honey, no offense. If she were real, I'd let her beat me up and have her way with me.
No offense taken. No, I would, I'd be all over that. Sorry, love. I'd go gay for Ivy. I totally would.
And I would watch.
Panda Power. The real Vlad the Impaler was a national hero in Romania. And in fact, to this day, they still celebrate him. He was kind of a badass who protected his tiny country from the Ottoman Empire for years.
Europe could learn a lot from Vlad right now as far as the Muslim invasion. Really, when buildings started blowing up, they should have just said, you know what? We need to somehow unearth Vlad, make him an undead cyborg, and let him loose.
Just remember to take off your hat when you're around him.
Do tell.
Oh, you don't know about that?
I'm not the vampire expert.
Oh, shit. This is real. People were coming to court to pay their respects. One nobleman refused to take off his hat. So Vlad had it nailed to him.
Holy shit.
Yes.
Oh, read this one first.
Trenton to Panda Power. One of my cousins served a mission in Romania and he learned you don't say anything bad about Vlad. Very, very, very true. I want to go. I totally want to go. Endless Nocturne. Don't feel bad about the probing stuff, Ishi. It's the best way to get a good reading for internal body temperature.
No butt stuff.
The thing is if you told me that there was a good percentage of your people who all are disguised as proctologists, I would totally believe you.
Well, there's two factions of Greys. Now, they're not in conflict with each other. They do have 2 points of view. There's the one faction that's been here since 73,000 years that have been kind of nudging along our evolution, and that's really what the abductions are about, that and the boobs. Stealing the boobs and then helping push humanity along.
It's all about boobs and butts.
But then there's a secondary offshoot that's saying, fuck it, let's stop with the slow motion here and just start splicing DNA right now and create hybrids. So that's the thing.
Endless Nocturne. Is there a male version of the Tall Whites?
Yeah, actually there is, but the female version's far more interesting because they're horny. It seems like the males are much more cold and reserved, and there are no stories of male hybrids, or not hybrids, tall whites sneaking in on women and giving them the night of their lives.
No incubi, huh?
No, no. But apparently, apparently the female tall whites like to double team.
Oh, do
That's
they?
part of the lore. They like to
Really?
double team. They work in pairs.
And they have pairs. Anyway. Mark Alcatraz, spirit cooking with Podesta.
Yeah, that is creepy, isn't it? That's the ritual.
Oh, yes.
That is some weird shit. I mean, again, when I was a kid and I'd see people on talk shows talking about this stuff, I think, oh, that's just crazy bullshit, and just mark it up to the satanic panic. Here we are, what, 40 years later?
Yeah.
And how much of this shit's like, no, the Democrats have an issue.
Yeah, they do. LK, who on earth thought it was a good idea to invite a Quaker to Bohemian Grove?
Nixon was, yeah.
Yeah.
I can only hope Nixon kicks some ass.
Did they know he was a Quaker? That's the next. Or, of course, they might have thought, oh, he's in politics. Of course he's corrupt. It's like, no, just misguided. Elias, so pics of Lady Gaga and fake hope it is dead bodies were real?
Yes, those photos were indeed real. The body probably was fake. But yeah, that really happened. And worse, the artist, that weird hermaphrodite woman who does all the spirit cooking shit, is great friends with Podesta, Hillary, Lady Gaga, Bill Gates, what's his name? Bono. Yeah, it's kind of creepy. Oh, Epstein.
Shit.
Weinstein as well. And Eisner.
Oh my God.
Or not Eisner, Iger, Bob Iger. So it's kind of creepy.
Elias, also, anyone help me about Obamagate?
I would say watch the video that Sargon of Akkad did, breaking it down bit by bit what the problem is. But really, the short version goes as follows. Obama spied on Trump. It looks like not only did he spy on Trump, they did it with the assistance of the Russians, and that he broke all sorts of laws to try and give Hillary an edge. And that apparently this had been the norm for his administration. Okay. I don't want to get into the argument about AI.
We can do that another time. That really is another show all on its own. But this is aliens. H Boomer, have either of you read the Lensman books?
I've only heard about it. Sadly, the only exposure I've had was that 80s anime. I take it they're good?
Wolf 10 to Owen. Screw that, man. I'm waiting for cyberization and cyberbrains.
Same here.
I totally want to be a robot.
We'll put you in an Ivy Valentine bot. No, a Noi.
I want a Noi body. God damn, I want a Noi body. You can be my Shin. Shin's fucking hot, dude. LK, I haven't read them in many years, but I loved the first book when it came out. There were 3 books, First Flight, Grounded, and a third whose title I don't remember. Well, it involves flight. I'm interested. LK, he pushed N.K. Jemison, enough said.
Yes, and he pretty much paved the way for her to run the SFWA. And frankly, someone that thoroughly racist and disgusting, if she were white and saying that about other ethnicities, there would be torches and pitchforks at the door. But because she's an angry black woman, it's perfectly okay.
LK, to Mark. Scalzi had a huge meltdown over the puppies and led the charge, which have effectively killed the awards.
Yeah, the awards are meaningless now.
Mm-hmm. Sadly, it goes for just about all of the big awards now. They they don't mean anything. I mean, award shows always have some form of agenda, but there's always going to be a certain amount of, well, it's worth a damn. Not anymore. I can't think of a single one of these bigwig awards that actually means anything anymore. Ricky Joya, I now understand why Will Wheaton reads his audiobooks.
Scalzi.
Mm-hmm. Why Will Wheaton reads for Scalzi.
Yeah. Well, they're buddies, apparently.
Yeah, fuck that tree, Wheaton. See where it gets you. For those who don't know, Will Wheaton fucked a tree at the Ren Fair.
Oh, yeah, that's a true story. Yeah, that's a fun one. I knew a lot of people who were regulars at the Ren Fair in California, especially the Glen Helen one. And there was the Sea Dogs, which were the pirate guild, which apparently has always been the rebels. Apparently the woman who founded the Ren Fair doesn't like them for whatever reason. And anyway, the first year of Star Trek Next Generation, he was there, and I think he was actually trying to be part of the Sea Dogs, but Will Wheaton essentially forced his way in because he's a celebrity, and that was the only reason he even got in, right? Behind the scenes. Now, apparently, in the 80s and 90s, behind the scenes at the Ren Fair, it was essentially one gigantic orgy, constantly. We're always drunk and just sex everywhere, people hooking up. And that was one of the big attractions, apparently. Will Wheaton was apparently drunk and unlikable, and nobody wanted anything to do with him. And he was pissed because, well, I'm a celebrity. I was in Stand By Me. I'm on Star Trek now. Why am I not getting laid? And finally, apparently at one point, he got so pissed drunk. He said, fine, no one will fuck me. I'll fuck this tree. And he pulled down his pants and started dry humping the nearest tree. And it was infamous Ren Fair talk for years. So just remember, every time you see Will Wheaton, he fucked a tree because no girl would touch him. All right, let's see.
Trenton, I didn't know all that about Scalzi. I did enjoy Red Shirts, thought it had a unique premise and found it funny. But after hearing more about him, I'll avoid his shit.
Yeah, he is a complete dirtbag. Let's see. Man, see, this is one of the reasons I avoid the AI conversation. It has just taken over the goddamn chat. It's aliens, people. Aliens.
We'll talk AI another time. Everybody, I promise you, we will talk AI another time.
Let's see.
Although Owen wants a Guyver suit.
Owen needs a Guyver suit.
Yeah. Mark says, I can't wait for the world to get red-pilled on Obama.
Same here. Of course, the thing is my parents and my entire extended family are kind of kneeling at the Church of Obama. And, it really is like trying to talk to a cult. It really is. It doesn't seem to matter. Reality just can't get through.
No, I know that my dad had been telling me for years, because my dad worked with the government, and he had been telling me for years just that Obama is not what he seemed. And I know it made him very happy when I called him up and I said, Daddy, I was wrong and you were right.
Obama's a shit hook.
Yes.
Oh, answer this.
Who the fuck is Will Wheaton? That's Wesley from Star Trek Next Generation.
Shut up, Wesley.
Yes. Anime Acid Trip. Have you guys ever read the Mars trilogy by Kim Stanley Robinson? I have the last book in the series and am looking to read the whole thing for help with the space western idea.
Cool.
I have not heard of that series. Oh wait, Mars trilogy. Do you mean Red Mars, Blue Mars, Green Mars?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I attempted to read it. It was not for me. It's simply just not that it was bad. It was just I couldn't get into the writing style. So, but that's me. Aged Boomer. The Lensman books are classic pulp science fiction books by E. Doc Smith. If you're interested, start with Galactic Patrol.
I'll take a look at that.
Nice, thank you. Hitman Wanderer. I finally read Starship Troopers. Great book. Heinlein had a hate boner for Karl Marx.
And God damn it, we love him for that.
You better duck or I'll hit you with it.
Damn straight. So we have come to the end of all the comments and questions. I think we're done. Do you want to read one more review of Scalzi's, or not Scalzi, jeez, Tom King's book, and then we'll move. We'll call it a night.
I do, but honestly, I've hit my wall of energy. I'm actually getting dizzy spells just sitting here. So I think it's good that we're calling it a night.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. We hopped on almost right after I got off work. So
okay. So here's a few more reviews of Tom King's Factual Aliens book here. 1 star from BC Fred. Nothing new. This book is just a compilation of previously published material, all of which is on the internet. There's nothing new or compelling about it. Don't waste your money. Another one. Oh, that one's the 2 fake reviews. Fuck that. Almost all the reviews are 1 star. Disappointing, poorly written, lacks substance. Verified purchase. A.W. Nova. This book is very disappointing from my perspective. The description of each event was vastly inadequate. The grammar was often incorrect, and wording from sentences often didn't make any sense. I found the actual content less intellectual. There was not very much information to be gleaned. The evidence was not compelling for me. In fact, the explanation for UFO events were so incomplete and vague, it was hard to understand. Not very professional. So there you go. Tom King sucks at everything. And it's probably a reptilian who eats kittens.
I think that'll be the title of my next book. Just plain Tom King sucks at everything.
And it's probably a reptilian who eats kittens.
Yes. Oh, that'll be the subtitle. So there.
All right. Well, thank you for joining my lovely wife, Kat, and myself, the alien, on my great big alien show.
You need a theme song.
Yes, I do. Next week, I think we're going to be doing an interview with an alien.
Yes.
In which she interviews me. I know, not very compelling, but you get to hear it.
It'll be cool. It'll be awesome. We'll talk about what tools he uses with his probes.
I don't want to talk about it. All right, one more time. If you haven't, please check out my book, Scars. It's 99 cents on Amazon right now, or free if you have Amazon or Kindle Unlimited. If you've already read the book and like it, please, 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 for the love of all things good and decent, if you want to help us, please review the book. It is amazing how much that helps. That's actually even more important than the purchase itself, is just reviewing it. And I can explain that later for those of you who are interested in selling stuff on Amazon. In fact, I can do that on Writer's Room. I can talk about why reviews on Amazon are so critical.
And speaking of Writer's Room, what is tomorrow's episode?
Tomorrow, we're going to be talking to Catholic urban fantasy and occult fiction writer, Russell Newquist, who is going to be talking about his book, War Demons, which I've been reading about a third of the way through the book. And I've so far been very impressed. It has a very, for a book that's about an ex-spec ops guy who gets drawn into sort of a paranormal war behind the scenes in Iraq, I was expecting something a little less realistic. I am really shocked at just how real everything reads. And then the demons show up, which really helps to let me put it this way. It feels like you're reading a Tom Clancy novel, and then it goes supernatural. And it's really heavy on the Catholic lore as
I'm
well.
very interested. I'm
Um,
extremely interested.
so yeah, I usually don't read this kind of stuff. Now, granted, I do better with occult than I do fantasy, but yeah, I highly recommend the book if you read that kind of thing. And we will be interviewing him tomorrow.
The chat is asking you, how many pages is Scars?
49 pages. It's a novella.
Okay, guys, thank you all again so much for joining us this evening. Please tune in tomorrow night for the Writer's Room and Friday for Kronk, right?
The Mad Ginger returns.
Where the Mad Ginger returns. And then Saturday we do our movie reviews. So, yeah, it's a busy week for us.
Well, I got a book to promote, so you're going to hear a lot of me for a while. All right, guys.
Thank you. Good night.